How's it going, everyone? Dylan here from All You Can Board, and I am here with a video that is a review on a product called Quezzle. Now, you're probably wondering, first things first, why I'm in my living room. You've seen, I think, every video we've done on the channel. I've been in the studio that we call it, our games room. And that is because I had to build 4 small puzzles that make one giant puzzle, one Quezzle, to properly review this. And if I had done that in the games room, I wouldn't have been able to shoot anything else in there. And if I did have to shoot something, there would have been this giant irrelevant puzzle to whatever I was shooting, and I would have had to explain that. So I built it on my coffee table, and I didn't want to try to transport it to the games room and end up breaking it and having to restart everything. So I'm shooting my first video in the living room. Desmond's here joining me on the couch. He's probably gonna bark at something out the window and ruin one of these takes that I'm doing for this video. Say la vie. So today we're talking about Quezzle. Now, Quezzle is from Unidragon. We need to thank Unidragon for sending us these 4 Quezzle puzzles. So what is Quezzle? That's the first question I had when I looked at the Kickstarter page and looked into this product in general. And yeah, there's a couple things I want to explain to make sure you understand what it is that we're talking about here, especially if you're going to choose to try to potentially back this product or buy it. And it is still on Kickstarter, I should mention, I think for like a couple more days when we're posting this. So there might be some sort of late pledge option, and I'm sure it'll be available after the fact. But in case you're wanting to buy it, basically Quezzle is a very intricate wooden puzzle that you're building, and there's 4 sections. So there's 4 separate puzzles that we've looked at. There's 3 here, and I have another one over here. And basically when you build each one separately, they all go together to create this big Cappadocia, I think is how you pronounce it, which is a region in Turkey. This big, artistic, beautiful drawing. And when they're all done, you're not quite done with the experience, because then you're actually going through the quadrants, and there's specific side quest mission type things in each quadrant that you're trying to basically complete. It might be something, they're all sort of like Where's Waldo-esque experiences. So it would be something like, you know, find all the stars on this section, or find this specific animal. Or there's some that are a little bit more involved, like you have to track down a maze, and then you have to actually work your way through the maze. But after you've completed all 4, there's also one sort of giant narrative that you need all 4 to complete it to be able to properly do, and that one gets pretty interesting. There's some pretty cool stuff happening with it. I won't get into any of the logistics or the actual like explain to you exactly what you're doing, because I don't want to spoil anything. I think that's part of the fun, part of the experience. There's some pretty cool things they do in there, cool little secrets. But basically that's what it is. It's a puzzle that's really well designed, really intricate laser cut wooden pieces, and then after you're done, you have an experience that you can take away from it and still interact with in the same way that you would Where's Waldo, or more recently MicroMacro, which is a game that Carlo's been playing a whole bunch of. So that's basically what Quezzle is. You can buy, I think, single puzzles. So like this is part 1 of 4, these 4 pieces. You can buy a single part and just build that section. But really, I think this is an experience that you're going to like want all 4 to properly do. Otherwise, you're only getting really 1/4 of the experience. You can just do missions on 1 quadrant, but I think the full experience is sort of not, I would say it's almost required for what they've come up with here. So I'm gonna go over sort of this in a couple sections, all the things I really like, the positives, and then I won't call them necessarily negatives, because I honestly didn't have much of a negative experience with this. I mean, it's a puzzle experience that has this game aspect to it. I think it's really cool, but there are things that, you know, I was a little bit let down on, and some things that I think that you should be aware of, especially if you're gonna come in and potentially try to back it. I wanna give you the full gamut of everything that you can possibly, you know, need to know or want to know before you make that decision. So what are the things I liked about this? Well, first of all, it's absolutely gorgeous. The quality on it is fantastic. All the pieces are just very interestingly designed. So, you know, as in a regular puzzle, you might have all the pieces looking somewhat similar, and it's more about trying to match the image. Whereas in this puzzle, and in puzzles Unidragon makes in general, you could have there's pieces in here that are like an actual falcon that's completely carved out, and you have to find the spot that goes. Or one could be a dinosaur, one could be a human being. Like, there's all these really intricately designed shapes that you're connecting together, and it's really satisfying to put those together. It's really fun to do the puzzles. I'm not a huge puzzle guy. I don't do a lot, but I was absolutely addicted to these ones just because of how like the production design on them and how much fun it was to try to fit all these pieces together. One of the cool things is, like, you know, in a regular puzzle, say you had a picture of a balloon, like there's tons of balloons on here, so use that as an example. You could just like have a couple pieces that you're just like, okay, I have this half of the balloon, I just have to find the other piece that's this half of the balloon. The difference here is you could have an entire piece that is the entire balloon shape. And so now it's not as easy because you have to put that balloon in and you can't go find a piece that's like where it'll have a hint of the red of the balloon or something. I hope I'm explaining this properly. But essentially, because that balloon entirely is that piece, you now have to try to find pieces that surround that balloon, which makes it a little bit more tricky. I found it a little bit more engaging and fun to actually complete the puzzle portion. So that was really, really good. The actual like mission experience that you get after you're done the entire puzzle, it is a really like relaxing, enjoyable experience to sort of go through and track things down. A lot of it is stuff that you'll probably remember as you were building the puzzle in the first place. You'll remember, oh, I remembered seeing a minotaur, or I remembered seeing a ninja, and now you're having to go back and remember where you did. So part of it almost becomes a bit of a memory game. Can you remember where everything was? Like I said, there's a decent amount of little missions that they've hidden in here, and it's a good way to explore all the detail because how detailed these puzzles are. You would already, even if there was no missions associated with it, you'd have it up, you know, if you framed it, if you glued it, whatever, and you had it up somewhere, people would be like going to find out the little details that are in anyways. Now you can have sort of things that you're specifically calling out that you need to go find, a reason why you're exploring these you know, areas with your eyes. So I thought that was really cool. They were really fun to go through. The overall narrative that you unlock with all 4 puzzles, that was the best part of it. Again, I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but needless to say that the things that you get to do with the final experience, the final overall conclusion of the story, is the best part, in my opinion, of everything that they have for, like, you know, the secrets and things they're unlocking. That was a really cool experience. I don't know the best way to describe this. I think I already touched on it a little bit, but I just want to stress like how addicting it was to build these. Again, I'm not huge into puzzles, but I crush these so quickly. I just found myself constantly wanting to just do the next one or finish the one I was on. I thought it would take me a lot longer to make this video because it would take me a while to complete these puzzles and see everything, and I just completely breezed through everything because of how enjoyable the experience was. It's super satisfying to put these pieces in, and again, because of how intricate and beautiful the design is, it's just you want to see the completed image as well. So again, from the box design to the piece design, everything is really well thought out, really well designed. So those are like sort of my favorite things about it, which, you know, are the things you'd expect that this product is you know, promising to deliver on. In terms of you know, again, negatives or however you want to view it, I would say that, you know, most of it's minor. So the first one is, because of how intricate, this is a pretty minor one, but it's just something that came up pretty often for me. Because of how laser cut and intricate the pieces are to fit together, there was tons of times where I knew a piece went somewhere and it absolutely did go there, and I just could not get the piece to properly fit at first, and eventually it just slides in perfectly. Like, again, this is a minor complaint, but it's just one of those things where when you're in the heat of it and you're just wanting to get pieces put in, you're like, why is this piece not going in where I absolutely know it's supposed to go in? It's because the puzzle shifts a lot with the way that the pieces are, so you have to like sort of shift a couple things to make sure it properly fits, and then once it's in, it's locked in there. But just one thing I noticed, and in general, if you're, you know, a puzzle fiend and you do puzzles all the time, this one is a little bit more loose, is the best way to describe it, and when you're building it. Like, the pieces are going to move around a little bit more. The intricacy of like some of the designs and how weird some of the shapes are can make it where you have pieces in that are just sort of like biting up against each other, not connecting until you've connected things around it, which, if you're, you know, again, a puzzle pro, it might annoy you compared to what you're used to. I personally didn't mind it at all. I thought that was just part of the experience of these, and I loved how they came together, but something to keep in mind for sure. Talking about the missions themselves, the game aspect, again, we don't cover puzzles on this channel. The reason that we're even looking at this is because there's a game aspect to it, and because, you know, all the, you know, how big MicroMacro became, and Carlo has been really enjoying that, and I haven't been able to jump in and play it aside from like the tutorial part of it. It's just, I think that there's more of a desire for that kind of stuff, and MicroMacro did so well that I think there's going to be more people trying that kind of stuff. So that's sort of what drew us to this in the first place, was the mission aspect and the fact that you're basically building a game board for yourself, so to speak, that you can then, you know, take on all these missions with. And I will say that the missions were a lot more simplistic than I was expecting. This is much closer to a Where's Waldo experience than it is to a MicroMacro experience. It's above a Where's Waldo experience in complexity, but I wouldn't say it's much more above it. That's not necessarily a negative, because I think it's still tons of fun, and I think especially with a younger crowd, a younger audience, where as a family activity, this would be phenomenal. Because if I was, as a kid, had access to this and was building a puzzle with, you know, my parents or whatever, and then also being able to do the Where's Waldo style, finding things after and finishing this narrative, I would have been enamored with this. So again, it's not so much a knock as it is just a warning that if you're coming into this as a couple in your 30s or whatever, and you're expecting to basically build the map that's in MicroMacro to explore, it's nowhere near that intricate. You're just going to be searching for specific things. It calls out, it says, look for this many stars or look for these butterflies, and you're just trying to find them. The final narrative you get for all four combined and the missions that are associated with that are probably the most interesting. That was my favorite part about the entire thing. There's some cool secrets that tie into everything there. That was my favorite part. But again, it is something to keep in mind that like the puzzles have about 200, I think it's 250 pieces each. There's 1,000 pieces in total. It's not going to take you crazy long to build, especially if you're a pro, a puzzle pro, if that's the official term. But it'll give you a decent amount of time with them. I think you're gonna spend more time building than you're gonna actually spend on the mission part. But that being said, if you're not lending this out to anyone, you're gonna sort of glue it when it's done, put it up on your wall. It might even be a cool idea to sort of glue it up there with the actual like newspaper pieces, or put the newspaper things like in a little slot that people can grab, because people who are coming over to your house can actually just like say, okay, I'm gonna go find the escaped animals and start looking through the map you've made. It's kind of a neat little activity you can have for guests in your house. I think it's really neat that way. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. The missions aren't super in-depth, they aren't super complicated. I wouldn't say that if you shouldn't buy this specifically for the mission aspect. Like, you should be buying this because you're a puzzle fanatic and you want something extra as a little reward after you've completed it that you can then play and add longevity to it. Honestly, those are like my main thoughts with it. I think the biggest thing to stress here is that as someone who is not a huge fan of puzzles in the first place, I have nothing against them. It's just not something I would go like out of my way to buy and do. I was blown away by how much I got into this and how addicted I became with them. Like my biggest takeaway from this was that I would be super interested in buying like a massive like 5,000 pieces. I don't know what puzzles go up to, but like, a couple thousand pieces. Like, give me this one that's double the size of this and all done with this like wooden style laser cut that Unidragon does, and just let me have it out on a table and just like slowly work on it. I loved building this, so even more so than I did building regular puzzles. So for me, the missions at the end and the added interactivity I got with the completed product was just an added bonus. I enjoyed the puzzle experience enough that it outweighed the fact that I was a little bit let down by how complex, or not complex I should say, the missions were. But again, that's going to come down to you and what you are specifically buying this for. And specifically, and actually like talking about buying it now that I mentioned that, the other thing that I think is definitely worth mentioning is that this is a pretty expensive product, at least on the Kickstarter page. Now, Kickstarters and shipping and stuff like that, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on and has been going on for a while. A shipping cost crisis and everything with the board game and industry these kind of puzzles and products are a part of, that it's hard for me, and I don't want to just comment and say this is too expensive. I think that's just an irresponsible thing for me to come out and say directly, because I don't know all the logistics, like in terms of what is going on with shipping and how much things cost. I just will say that it is something you should keep in mind, that this is pretty like expensive or a pricey product. I think each puzzle, I know that on the Kickstarter page for getting everything, all 4 puzzles and the little 3D figures that you get to build as well with it, I think is like $230 Canadian or something without shipping. It's around there. So it's pricier. So this is something that I think if you're going to buy it, it shouldn't deter you if you're really into puzzles and you already spend way more than that a year on puzzles. But I would say if you're specifically buying this for the mission aspect, it's not going to be, I would say it's not going to be worth as much as what you're paying for it. Where I think you really have to be going into this saying, I want the full experience. I want a puzzle I can build. I want to be rewarded with something extra at the end. Maybe you have kids and they want to be able to like, try out all the missions. It's going to take them a lot longer to get through it than it would you as an adult. I think at that point, the value is absolutely there. The premium pieces and how satisfying it is to build and how gorgeous the final display is and how much detail and how much stuff there's going on here. There's stuff that isn't even part of the missions that I'm going around looking and coming up with my own little storylines with because of how much is going on in here. So it's not that I don't think it's worth that price. I just think you should be aware that this is a bit more of an expensive product, and I think you really have to sort of understand what you're getting in for and really have a desire to be building puzzles specifically, more so than the mission aspect if you're going to go out and buy this. But another thing to consider is that if you're sort of wondering, what the puzzle pieces are like, and before you dive into this huge one, you want to know, what it feels like to build one of these kind of puzzles. There's a whole bunch of smaller puzzles that Unidragon has on their website as well that you can buy for a lot cheaper. So you could even start there, and then I'm sure this will, the Kickstarter may be over, but if there's a late pledge option or once this becomes available to retail, then you could always dive into saying, yeah, I want to buy the full 4-piece Quezzle set and dive right in head first. So again, not so much that the value is not there, just I think you should be aware that this is a bit more expensive. Those are pretty much all my thoughts on Quezzle. I had a really, really good time with this, surprisingly good time with this. I'm hesitant, I'm dreading the fact that I'm gonna have to break this all apart because I know Carlo wants to try it with his wife, so they're gonna build it all from scratch. But it's just so beautiful sitting here on my coffee table that I'm just loving it here. I need to start doing puzzles just so I can frame them, I guess, on the walls because this looks so gorgeous. But yeah, I had a really great time with it. Again, it's not perfect, but it also is. It was a pleasant surprise, especially because I didn't really quite understand everything I was getting into. So if you do have any other questions, if there's anything here I didn't explain well enough, or you're wondering any other things about this that I didn't touch on, please just leave a comment on the YouTube video. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, or about my experience, or any questions that I wasn't clear about here. But in general, I think if you're a puzzle fan, and if you're looking for something that rewards you after you've built the puzzle with some extra activities in the vein of Where's Waldo or MicroMacro, then I think this is an excellent thing for you to check out. The Kickstarter link is in our bio, so go check it out. There's a couple days left in the campaign. And again, I'm not sure if there's gonna be a late pledge option, but if there is, you can probably reach it from that campaign link as well. And we'll also put the Unidragon link in there as well. And again, thanks to Unidragon for sending this this product to review and to talk about, because I had a great time with it, and I'm hoping it helps you inform your purchases in the future. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoy the stuff we're doing, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our videos, any of our content. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.